big fan of that theme music, but that's great. So, first of all, David, thank you for your leadership of this wonderful company that's hosted this event. I am honored to basically be here and to be asked to speak. I think most importantly, this could turn out to be a group therapy session. No one's tweeting, so it's all good. We're all amongst friends. But, you know, we've all been through a whole bunch of, tech conferences. But it's amazing, right? So this is the Super Bowl for BetterCloud. You had quotes about the best IT conference or best tech conference that somebody's gone to, and then at 10:15, you want a weird guy in a sweater vest coming in to present as a CIO. So thank you, high expectations. Previous speaker, off the charts. Tom, can we give him a round of applause again? I thought it was absolutely off the charts. Thank you. You have really set the bar very, very high for me, everything from planes and radar, AI, parental issues. I won't be able to go to that level, but I'll definitely give it a shot. But we've all been through one of these presentations. We've all been. How many IT managers have we got in the room? Put up your hands. My people. These are people getting shit done. Okay. Any CIOs in the room? Group therapy will commence very soon. And CISOs. Okay. There's coffee and there's Irish coffee. Take your pick. Okay. Most importantly, this sort of venue, this sort of event takes a tremendous amount of effort. So I do want to make sure that we say thank you to the people who are behind it. Kim Solo kicks ass and is off the charts. She's better than Han Solo. Sarah has been very helpful. Danny, Jenny, thank you very, very much for putting in a great event and for hosting and getting my nerves very, very calm. And let's give a shout out to Team AV, Kent and Mika, most important people in the room. So, how do IT people get shit done? Very, very simple. We always have a plan. We know about backups. We know how to basically go through it. So it's going to be very, very simple. Slide doesn't work. I'm just going to say next slide. We good with that? Great. Microphone doesn't work. Handheld microphone right there. Correct? Smooth sailing. Absolutely fine. Let's get started. So there's going to be some obvious questions. As David introduced me, I used to be the CIO of Pure Storage, a wonderful storage company, because actually the cloud is actually built on hardware. Couldn't believe it. You actually have to have storage things. You need to put a lot of this data. It needs to be stored somewhere. So Pure Storage pioneered flash storage and the architecture that goes into that. Prior to that, I was CIO for a cybersecurity company called Qualys, a character building experience of all proportions, having to deal with engineers who are building security software, and then to be able to implement security protocols and security measures in there. Now, there's going to be some obvious questions that are going to come out of this presentation. For example, did I date much in high school? No. But let me tell you, it got better in college. No, it didn't. Now, some of you are also going to basically worry. Yousef, you're a CIO. What's with the sweater vest? Why are you walking around? Think about it. Most people are end users, as we call them, employees, workers, are typically very angry at what we do. Yes? Kind of frustrated, the ticket's taking too long, I didn't close the sales guy was like, I didn't close my deal because of IT, blame the laptop. Sweater vest, defense mechanism. Walk down any office, people are mad at you and they'll look at you, they're like, okay, I'm just going to calm down right now. Didn't this guy park my car the other day? I don't know, maybe he did. Ever seen a video on YouTube of a guy in a sweater vest being punched? Doesn't exist. Defense mechanism. Got to bring things at ease. Okay, so here's what I'm going to share with you today. I have interviewed and met with and had group therapy sessions with and bought drinks for hundreds and hundreds of CIOs over the last couple of years. I've also met with CEOs and CFOs and chief operating officers and investors. Why did I do that? Not because I have a lot of spare time. It's mainly because as part of my job, in my last few jobs, I'm not very smart. I got some very good feedback early on in my career. Someone came up to me and they said, you know what, Yousef, you're not very smart. And I was like, I was like speechless. Like, well, that's kind of harsh. And they said, but you know what? What you can do is take a lot of information and relay it back to me. What you can do is you can take a lot of information and make decisions. And I honestly, the only response I had to that was, Mother, why would you say such a thing? So all I've done, and what I'm going to share with you today, is about how I see and what I've observed with a lot of these technology leaders, the opportunity that exists for us to be able to lead technology organizations, and why it's so important right now. And ultimately, I'm really just going to be able to try and give you some advice. Most importantly, I want to try and be helpful. When David and I were speaking about events and conferences, my one objective when I do presentations of this sort is to be able to make sure that you walk away saying, okay, I either violently disagree with this guy, or I actually agree with him and I took something away. If I do one thing, that's my one objective that I basically have. My mundane superpower is my ability to iron shirts. It's fantastic. Now, you must be wondering, did I iron my shirt this morning? You will never know. The sweater vest defends it. Thank you very much. Okay, right. So let's go through. I am the accident. You're liking this, right? Good. Team AV on my side. Good. So let's go through it. I am the accidental CIO. I probably even shouldn't be a CIO, right? I accidentally got into IT when it was called IT and it wasn't called tech. I got into, it was actually called Management Information Systems, MIS. And so the nickname was It's Always a Miss, which I kind of took personally. I've got, low self-esteem, so that kind of hurt my feelings. My mother was very nice to me, as you can see. It's a character building experience. I shouldn't really be here. So my journey has been a very interesting one. I started off at, learning programming, and then I kind of diverged and said, I'm going to go into finance. I want to, my dad was in finance, and I wanted to go into finance and banking, and look how the kind of world's economy worked. And then all of a sudden, I got a call from a temp agency during my second year of college in the United Kingdom, and was told there's a tech company which is moving into a new office. They need someone to help move boxes. And I said, I'm sure I was your number one choice. Thank you very, very much. And I joined that company, and I overheard a conversation with the office management team. I said to them, well, you need some help here. I gave them some advice. I got the call the next day. I was sent down to speak to the CTO. I didn't know what a CTO was. And he said he would like to order food for the engineers. I, of course, being OCD, Mr. Project Manager in the way that I was, went and struck deals with a whole bunch of restaurants in the area and said, look, I don't know what engineers do, but they get really antsy post 8 p.m. when they don't get fed. And it's my job to keep them happy. If you could help me out with that, I would really appreciate it. And so I started ordering food for engineers. So all of a sudden, the engineers were like, got to call me excuse me, which was really cool. They didn't know my name. It was Yousuf for a few months. That got upgraded to that one, which was also pretty cool. And then eventually it was like, hey, Yousuf, you should come here and talk to me. Now, I then got involved in understanding how an IT organization actually works. I was filing papers, looking at things like purchase orders and procurement. I was being told to work with recruiters. And my first project was called Y2K. For those of you who weren't born then, I officially hate you. Thank you very much. But my initials are YK, so actually in the UK, when I go back there, most people refer to me as Y2K because I was bugging the hell out of people like the Millennium Bug about getting that project done. Luckily, everything worked out well. And then there was a wide array of IT jobs, both building out e-commerce solutions, website development. I looked at managing teams and operations. I looked at infrastructure. I went deep into security. There were some common themes in there. I was just deeply, deeply interested in stuff. So I'm going to say a couple of things, and sometimes I'm going to say something like action. And I would like you, if you think it's useful, but I think it is useful, please note it down because I think it's very important. Number one, here's your number one action. Be curious, okay? Figure out something that you are really interested in and try and basically make sure that you start to learn it and get deep into it. This is not just superficial, I'm going to get a qualification and a certification. This is about owning a specific subject. Action number two, understand the business. We'll come back to that in just a bit. So this is my experience. I've gone with companies which are pre-IPO and then was part of the IPO process. I've gone through compliance. I've done global operations and teams. This is not a great resume by any measure. It's just an experience that I was very, very lucky to have because a lot of people helped me along the way. Okay? I was not able to go to CIO events. When you go to a CIO event, it's really, really, really discouraging for people who have low self-esteem because they're all talking about themselves, about how amazing they are. I am not that amazing. I am not that smart. I just take a tremendous amount of research. I take a lot of data. I ask a lot of questions. Usually, a lot of them are very stupid, and then I basically bring them to fruition. So let me share what I'm basically been learning over the last couple of years. The way of the world is now moving with technology at the center. Tom said it earlier. The 5 biggest companies in the world are tech companies, fundamentally. The level of companies that are growing are being driven by technology. Why is that happening? The reason you hear the term, every company is becoming a tech company, is very simple. Is because the cost of building software, the ability to build software, to be able to create a product with technology at the heart of it is next to zero. And what that basically means is that every company is embracing and embedding technology into their products and services every single day. Let's look at the financial services industry. The financial services industry is going through what I say is compressive innovation. That is to say that the banks are very much alive and well. We like banks. They take care of our money. They welcome us. Sometimes there's free coffee if you walk into them. And there's 7 people who surround you and make you feel very well welcome. That's good. But there's a whole aspects of our financial lifestyle which is now literally being disrupted by multiple services, right? Student loans are being disrupted. Lending is being disrupted. Mortgages. Now, I was around in 2008, 2007 when there was a financial crisis, but apparently you can get a mortgage on a mobile app. What's going on here? It's crazy. But that's what's basically happening. So every company, all of your companies that you work for, all of the companies that you interact with, are having a degree of technology that's either competing with them or being able to be used as a competitive advantage. This is why technology is at the center of the world that we basically live in. Why is that happening? Software has become ubiquitous for us to be able to develop. It used to be in the past that we thought, well, coding was a skill that we would kind of learn and take into place. It's now being embedded about how we operate. Okay? And by the way, I just want to be very crystal clear. A little bit about my personal background. I was born in Pakistan. I grew up in Egypt, in London, in Pakistan. I did high schooling in Kenya in East Africa. I lived in London for about 20 years and then moved to the US 4 years ago. This is a global phenomenon, number one. Number two, when your name is Yousef Ahmed Khan and you travel internationally, they treat you special. You may think of it as secondary inspection. I call it the VIP room. My flight is at 5 p.m. today. I'm already late. I'm on the pre-check list, basically. Okay? So it's a global phenomenon when we look at software. Okay? Look at all the events that you have been part of. This is the best one. Yes, I know. There are others you go to. And you'll see global communities that are basically forming. Companies which are building software are now not just doing some outsourcing thing, they're building development centers who are ingrained and integrated with those teams. Number two, patterns are now, in my viewpoint, irrelevant. Okay? What does that basically mean? It means that actually we used to use a lot of data to be able to make those decisions. That is still true to this day. But patterns is, the disruption comes when you kind of ignore patterns or you don't want to think that that is your frame of reference. You think Mark Zuckerberg was thinking, I wonder how Friendster is doing. Maybe I should create a new social media network. No. You think Travis Kalanick and Garrett Camp were thinking, let me think about the cab ride. How many cabs are going there? Let me create Uber. No. It's a fundamental shift in the ability to be able to read consumer demand, number one, and to figure out gaps in the marketplace. There's a gap in the market when it comes to policy management and SaaS management and secure. There's a little company called BetterCloud, which decided that this was a problem that they wanted to solve. I think they've done relatively well. I'm a very happy customer. And I look forward to my renewal discussion very, very soon. Here's the third thing. Now we're going to go dark and deep. How many people can put their hands up, tell me that your budgets have vastly increased over the last couple of years? Look at those smiley faces. How many of you have heard the phrase, headcount is going to be a little bit tricky this year? Yeah? So all of this technology is being asked you to support it, you to be able to build, and all of a sudden, you're going to be asked not be given the resource to it. Does that sound familiar? Look how happy I am. I've been a CIO and been in IT for 20 years. I'm excited. It's a character-building experience, ain't it? So here's how we basically approach it. But I think this is an opportunity for us, because all of this impacts us greatly. With the world that's being dominated by software, with data and innovation, it's actually a huge opportunity, not just for us to lead, but for us to be able to take advantage, to be able to deliver much better experiences to all of our customers, both internal to our companies and to external to what we do. So what does this mean for you? Well, let's get to a core point here. There is far, far too much happening in companies right now. Think about it. They're competing at a scale that they haven't seen before, right? I mean, literally, a company like General Electric, I mean, this is an age-old industrial company. You just sort of think, how is it possible that they could be losing their value? You speak to other companies in the software space. They got the read wrong, number one. But what's happening within companies right now is that there's a lot of software being deployed because the line of business buyer is what's really happening. Yes, it goes through IT in most cases, but it gets initiated from different aspects of the business. Would people agree with that or disagree? How many people have been approached by the cousin of the CMO who's got a new good marketing automation app? Fantastic. I had a cousin of a CFO many, many jobs ago when I wasn't a CIO, and they were the best telecom consultant on the planet. Fantastic. It's like, here's a cookie, have it, I'll come back to you in 3 months. I know what I'm doing. Why am I saying this? Because there's a lot going on when it comes to software that we're basically purchasing in the line of business. And it's our jobs to be able to navigate this and to be able to implement it and do it well. I was speaking to Nitin earlier, and he told me that one of the observations that he sees with companies in general is that we buy a lot of stuff, we need to basically put it to work. Would people agree that utilization of software and actually getting value of it is a problem? Right? So we've got that opportunity. So this is happening. That's the one. Second, getting things done is a lot harder. Change management and enablement is really, really hard. I've spoken to literally 50 CEOs over the last couple of months, and there was a very common thread. I said, they all kind of give these large keynotes, everything's going great, fantastic, we're crushing it, look at our stock price, etc. And I'm like, wow, you look so happy. What's the problem? It can't be all rosy. And the common thread that people said was that change management and enablement in businesses is really, really, really hard. Think about it, right? Think about it in your personal lives. Do you really need another mobile app on your smartphone to look at? Really? Not really. So think of it from your end customer base, right? Now you're deploying out a new application. You put it into place. There's been a whole change management campaign. There's been posters and emails. And then, of course, it hasn't got executive buy-in because if somebody decided it was a good job because they learned in their last job, and then they put it in place, and then 5 people use it. Does that sound common? 20 people then use it. By the time you get the ROI on this, it's 4 years down the road, and you're basically, that company's either not doing very well, or you really haven't seen value. So getting things done is actually a lot harder now. But that's an opportunity for us to be able to recognize that and take away what we can do. Why is that? It's because the role of IT has vastly changed. It used to be a very reactive business. I think a large part of it still is. Yes, there are fires we're putting out. Yes, there are problems we are still solving. But we're doing it from a different lens. That's the opportunity that exists for us. And I think your role, my role, and all of your role is fundamentally changing. So what I'm about to share is a couple of things. One is, I think if you don't think your role is changing, that's fine. I get it. No problem. I'm telling you what I've heard and what I've observed. And I think that if your role isn't changing right now, there'll be a forcing function down the road where it'll be forced to change. It's up to you how you want to get ahead of this, or you don't. Let me tell you what executive teams are expecting from us. How many of you have spoken to your CEO? Okay, not enough, in my viewpoint. How many of you can very clearly articulate your company's business strategy? See? Now, how many of you just don't give a shit? There's always one. Good. Okay, so look, executive teams are expecting a whole bunch from all of us. So let me share with you what that is, and then you can decide. Number one, we have to understand the business. This is the old version of IT is now dead. We are not in that business of being reactive anymore. Yes, we get that, but we have to do that in context of the business. How many of you really understand how your business operates? How many of you really, really understands what are the drivers that drive the HR organization and the finance organization? How many of you have worked with procurement and manufacturing and supply chain together to understand what their issues are from an efficiency standpoint? One of the things that I was able to look at, because through success and failure, I was always the first CIO for a company. So I always came in, and I always kind of had a playbook that I was effectively building out in my head. And one of those is that I'm just very, very curious. I will always work for companies that I need to know what's going on. I need to know how this business is put together. Most IT organizations typically fail because they don't understand the business. You do an upgrade to an application at the end of the quarter. Why in God's green earth would you do that when you want to be able to affect revenue? Why would you basically then end up doing a change when you know that there is much more efficiency being driven towards a particular quarter, towards a particular business segment than there would be in the past? So being able to speak the language of the business is your most important action that you need to do. Understand your business. Number two, understand the customer. The customer for each of your organizations has vastly changed. Some are SMB customers, some are enterprise customers, some are individual customers. They come from different demographics. They come from different regulations in different countries. You need to be able to understand that and get the depth of that. The only way you are able to do that is being able to ask questions, number one, being able to partner up with your partner organizations to be able to do that. Put yourselves in the shoes of the customer. I guarantee it to you, you'll be ultimately successful by being able to deploy out solutions because you can relate back to it. Now, this is a tricky part. How many of you have been able have presented at events? Now, that may be a difficult thing for you to do. The opportunity may not be there. But if there is one thing that you really need to focus on, and all of us, shockingly, I will tell you that I'm actually an exceptionally nervous public speaker. Okay? You don't want to know what happened in the last 24 hours. It was Dr. Pepper all over the place. Ginger ale shots. We're talking about M&Ms, peanut butter, and peanut. All over the place. That's the nerdy version. That's how I operate. But you need to be able to figure out how to communicate effectively. One of the biggest criticisms that executive teams have of IT organizations is that they're not able to effectively communicate change, and they're not able to effectively communicate value. If you're able to figure that out, get to it. How do you do that? Honestly, get practicing. Practice to present to your teams, work on your communication skills. Look at what the language that people use to communicate with you. Look at the emails that your CEO sends, right? Get in the context of being able to communicate and be able to build those skills up. They'll be very, very valuable to you. The ability to prioritize. This is one of the biggest issues that I typically hear all the time, okay? We all want to get stuff done, but there's always going to be trade-offs. There's stuff that every time you do something, you're not doing something else. Yes, you are all multitaskers. Yes, you are all amazing, but you're human beings. People understand that. You need to articulate it. So how many of you are under high-pressure jobs? Everyone should put up their hand because you're all IT people. Of course, you're high-pressure jobs. How many of you have got shifting priorities happening all the time? And there you go, okay? So if your ability to prioritize and articulate that prioritization is a skill that you need to develop. Because guess what? People understand trade-offs. The criticism that a lot of companies, a lot of executive teams have is they're like, we throw something, we kind of give the initiative, and we're never being told whether it can be done or not in the context of all the other stuff that's going on. So figure out how you want to be able to prioritize. My advice, very, very simple. I make it super simple. A single slide, I talk about what I do in every quarter and what I can get done, and then I'm able to basically present that and make it very transparent. This is what we're focusing on. And then when someone comes and says, we really need to get this done, I always say, what don't you want me to do, number one? Or I look forward to you giving me the headcount and the budget to do it. Oh, you are doing that? Oh, that's great. Thank you very much. I'll move on. Oh, you're not doing it? Oh, I guess it's not going to happen then. Great. It's about rigorous communication. But negotiating that, prioritizing it, articulating it is a skill you need to develop. Provide the options to the solutions. This, my friends, I understand that we have to sometimes be the bearer of bad news. I get it. I've been there, but let me tell you something. Right now, we've got more options available to us than we've ever had before. Okay? So, and what that I basically mean is when you approach a problem, provide the solution path with options for people to make that choice. This is one of the biggest failings that we do. We look at something and say, can't be done. Sorry, really difficult, really not possible. Actually, it can be done. Maybe it can be done later. Actually, it can be done. We may need to be able to figure out where we can free up budget. Actually, it can be done, but we need to reprioritize a whole bunch of other stuff. Those are solution options. Provide options. People like options. It's, they actually like choice to be able to provide that from a solution standpoint. Please focus on continuous improvement, right? This is not the world of doing a standard operating platform doesn't exist anymore. This is about continually improving it. You're going to be hearing some absolutely awesome updates from the BetterCloud product team. They've been working really, really hard, listening to all of us, and you're going to see some releases which are supremely valuable to us, right? That's continuous improvement of how we're able to utilize a great platform like BetterCloud and to be able to improve both our security posture and how we manage our IT environment. Last but not least, have some patience. I get it. You think something is important from a security standpoint, you want to be able to drive it forward. From an IT and an efficiency standpoint, I 100% get that. But we have to be patient to understand how the rest of the business is operating. Don't get frustrated by it. Don't get emotive about it. It's very easy to do. I understand that affects morale, but it's a patience aspect of being able to do business. Your counterparts in finance, in HR, in legal, in sales, in marketing are going through the same challenges that you are. Lots of work that needs to get done, competing in industries with competitors they have not seen before, change management, enabling, talent acquisition. These are all the problems that IT organizations face, as well as marketing organizations. So have the patience to be able to partner up, prioritize, get a path, and drive right through it, okay? Now, some people have asked me a number of times, they're like, how did you become a CIO? Completely by accident. A whole bunch of other people have asked me, well, what do you think the paths to leadership are? I've talked about some of the skills and behaviors. I hope that's helping. I've nailed down what I think to be, in the way of the world that I basically see it, 4 very clear paths to leadership. This is what I think they are. Number 1 is, and it all depends on where number 1 is, be a technical leader. What do I mean by that? Build technical expertise. Get deep into it, be able to articulate it, be able to present about it, be able to blog about it, be able to, really own it, and be able to build a community around it. That's technical leadership. That may be a comfort play, something that you are comfortable with. Then there's operational leadership. There's a bunch of you who like managing people. You like the aspect of being able to manage an operation. You've built some technical expertise, you've got a bunch of people together, and you want to be able to take that on. You want to be able to figure out how to manage small teams and to be able to deliver projects and change. There's a third aspect of innovation and change. I think this is a huge opportunity for every single person in this room, right? Take a project, take a piece of innovation, and drive it right through. Figure out a path that you want to do it. You know the beauty of this is? No one's expecting it. That's the best part. You can take your time. There's no frame of reference. But your ability to be able to see an opportunity by understanding the business, by understanding the customer, by understanding the context of your environment, create it, and be able to drive it straight through. Now, there's a whole bunch of stuff that I will never be involved in, like the blockchain. I don't get it. It's not a subject of, it's not an area of expertise I'm good in. Fintech, I'm very excited by it, but I don't think that's something that I'm going to be able to own. It's not something that I can provide innovation and change in my company. Maybe there's an opportunity for you to do so in yours. Figure out what that is. The fourth path is business leadership. So there is a trend now of CIOs and CTOs moving into much more senior leadership roles, such as chief operating officers, sometimes chief executive officers, sometimes founders of companies. It's starting to happen more and more. Global phenomenon. You may want to use your systems expertise, use the way of the world that you've understood software and technology and security and put all of that together, and you want to be able to see that there is a much more heavy technology bent in your company, and you want to basically lead that function and lead that company. Very possible. Chief Digital Officer is a very clear path. Very nuanced. People don't really know what it really means, what the scope of responsibility is, but that's a path that you can fundamentally do. Option 5 is you can also become a chef. Like, that's totally possible. You just say, look, I'm really happy with what I've been able to do. I actually know someone who actually did that, super happy. You know, there's no right or wrong answer. But what I'm trying to reiterate more than anything else is there's an opportunity for each of us to lead. And I know some of you are thinking, well, you know, this guy is really smoking dope. You know, like, you know, I was in a meeting the other day, and I was like being pushed for this change in AD, and like that's never going to happen. Like, how do I get from, you know, there to leading something? It's very possible. It's very, very possible. Trust me. So I think we have the opportunity to need to lead. I think you need to get ready to lead because you're going to be asked to do it. In every single area and domain of that you are operating in, you are going to be asked to lead. You are expected to lead in whatever small shape or form that you basically have, irrespective of size of team, by the way. Let me just be crystal clear about this. Leadership is now expected at every level of the organization. You are either leading change, you are either leading operations, you are either leading a massive ability to be able to innovate, but your ability to lead is now expected, and it will be, you know, if you're not ready for it, that's absolutely fine. I'm just telling you that you need to get into a mode to know that you're ready to do so. Number 2, you've got to be curious. I am not very smart. What I've been able to do is to ask a lot of questions. I go around looking and researching a tremendous amount. I actually like reading analyst reports. And if all of you buy Tom's book, I get a free copy. He may even sign it. Okay? I'm not, now, here's a common pushback. Yousef, I don't have time. Super busy. Wake up, phone next to me, gotta look at them tweets. Gotta look at the TechCrunch article. I get it. So, if you prioritize your time accordingly, if there's one thing that you can basically do, is to figure out that area where you want to be able to focus on and be curious about it, because it's changing very, very rapidly. Let me give you a data point. I spoke to a CIO who was hiring for a sysadmin role recently. And he said, I had 120 resumes come through. And 98 of them had no Okta experience. Just think about that for a second, right? We live in a SaaS world right now, okay? Like, if your only frame of reference for identity management, right, is Active Directory, I get it. But for people, there's a whole stack that are now taking courses on understanding SSO. The level of education that's available to us online is ubiquitous. So there should be no excuse. Just because you haven't had the exposure doesn't mean that you can't get curious, number one, and actually understand how that operates. I've been joking when I've been coming into this event this morning, as well as at the hotel when I'm meeting the Altitude crew. I'm like, do you guys know anything about SaaS management? Can anyone help me here, right? I didn't know much about it, okay? But if all of those resumes that you saw, the level of interest and the certifications that you saw from those candidates was all about looking at different protocols, basically clearly signal data that was coming out of those resumes was about them being able to learn and them being curious about doing it. Is a very common trend. You're doing it, I actually know you're doing it, right? Now you just need to be able to talk about it a little bit more, and people will say, okay, that's an opportunity for this individual to engage within the IT organization. Work on how you communicate. We've talked about this before. I was going to do, you know, it's just really, really important and able to reiterate, this is not just about being able to present. It's being able to actually write and articulate. It's about being able to comment on a blog with a degree of sincerity and authenticity, right? It's about having a healthy debate and conversation about standards in your industry. Get practicing on it because it will be really important. This is probably the most critical piece. figure out how you want to manage relationships. We are all friends here. Yes, I wear a sweater vest, so I'm everybody's friend. Trust me, I turn up at Safeway and most people ask me where the molasses is. 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm the most helpful guy on the planet. For whatever reason, it's divergent between people how to do that. Why is that? The reason is that I've figured out over time that when you work with vendors, when you work with your marketing peers, when you work with, you work with employees and you work with executives and you lead teams, how you manage those relationships is a skill that you need to develop. How you manage a meeting is actually a skill you need to develop, okay? So with vendors, here's a very classic thing. Everything is about you get the best price, yes? CFOs coming up to you, oh, well, got to get the best price. Yeah. Oh, how much do they quote us? It's got to be lower than that. What frame of reference do you think that basically is, that you just get the best price? Here's my piece of advice. When you work with any vendor, go for what I call as commercial sensible deals. Don't leave a bad taste in people's mouth, because nobody likes that. In the longer term, it doesn't really work. It doesn't suit you well, because fundamentally, it's really about human relationships. How do you work with customers, and how do you treat them? Anyone from United Airlines? No? I think they've had a customer experience issue over the drag and drop airlines, as I call them. Very interesting. Control C, Control V. No, I'm kidding. Okay. But managing relationships is something that you are going to be expected to do. Okay? Please try and own a project that delivers change. It's absolutely critical for you. And find a common denominator for business improvement. I walk into a company. I basically find out that they really care about conferencing. That's what I basically do. They can grow as fast as they want. They need to be able to do that really, really well. Last but not least, I talked about subject matter expertise. You need to be able to do that and get down into it. I've talked about the paths to leadership. I'm going to finish and let you know that these are those 4 paths. Please pick one. Drive through it. Feel free to reach out to me if you need any advice and help. I've given you some actions. Find a leader in your company that inspires you. Find a company that inspires you and learn from that individual or that company and aspire towards it. Think about an area that you want to get worked up about and get angry about. I want you to get worked up about it and make it better in your own company and outside, in your peers. And remember, be incremental. It's a marathon, not a sprint, okay? Summarizing it, we're living in an experience economy. We need to revolutionize customer experiences. IT is at the heart of it. And watch these 2 movies, Seabiscuit and Rudy. Fantastic. Seabiscuit, both movies based on a true story. Seabiscuit, smallest horse, best line from that movie, horse doesn't think it's very small. Rudy, that story is ubiquitous, just kept driving. I fundamentally believe each of us can do that, and we will be successful. Thank you very, very much.